You're listening to The Lion, 10,000 watts, KHNC, 1360 AM, Johnstown, Denver.
My guest today, Dave Hodges, back on the show, second go-round. I didn't chase him off the first time. Dave, welcome.
You got to try harder, my friend.
Okay. The rich men are weeping and howling because things are falling apart. Their new world order that they're trying to implement on the rest of us is, well, it's being exposed, isn't it, Dave?
Well, some of these guys are weeping and howling because they're getting thrown off 30-story buildings.
Oh, yes, on the way down.
That's right. Well, what we see, and I'm sure a good portion of your listening audience understands the connotation of that comment, and what we're seeing now is bankers that are being assassinated. And I said it kind of backhandedly in an article I published today. I said, these are suicides made to look like murders, and people are writing into me and saying, Dave, didn't you mean murders meant to look like suicides? No, I meant just what I said. These are public executions being carried out by a group that I'll talk about in a minute, and they are designed to send a clear message to the bankers who have hijacked the governments of the modern world that we've had enough and we're not taking anymore.
Really?
Oh, yes, really. And you're going to... how do I say this? If I were a baseball pitcher, Randy, I would like to be a closer. They get big money. They come in, they pitch the ninth inning. A lot of pressure on them, but they get paid well for the amount of work that they perform. In this case, I'm the eighth inning setup guy. I'm the guy that come in and I'm holding down the fort so the closer can come in and hold down the show. I've been approached by a couple of high-level sources who have revealed much to me in the past, which turned out to be accurate, and I was told that you are to go forward, write an article, and no matter what you write, you can write the sky is green and the sun is red, but in there you need to make the statement about these bankers that are being knocked off, that are in the media, that these are only mid-level bankers, and that there are much higher-level bankers whose deaths are being held in more secret that are also being knocked off, and it's going to get bigger, it's going to get worse, it's going to get political, so long as these bankers are continuing to try to do the things in this country that they're doing. And what I can tell you is going on, that Obama has fired over 260 senior military command officers. Now, I can't absolutely say for a fact that several of these officers are involved in these hits, but I can tell you that what's brewing in this country right now, and there's actually an ex-CIA agent who's on the record talking about this, and my sources confirm this, there are preparations going on right now with the disaffected military leadership, as well as certain key veterans groups, including like ex-Navy SEALs, ex-Army Rangers, that are preparing for guerrilla civil war based upon what's coming. And we can certainly take this apart as far as what's coming. And these assassinations are a clear message. Just let's take the one in Denver. Guy gets killed with a nail gun in which he shot himself in the head and in the chest. Some suicide, huh? Not really.
It didn't work in the chest, so that felt so good, I'll do it in my head. Yeah, okay.
That's as believable, Randy, as committing suicide by shooting yourself in the back of the head.
Yeah.
His murder was a clear message to higher-up bankers who, like I said, they're also being knocked off by some of these groups. Now, I'm the eighth inning setup guy. I was told you're not going to be given the names of these high-up bankers. If you want to live to see tomorrow, it's probably better that you don't know. And that was a quote that I was told both 2 days ago and yesterday. But this weekend, or before this weekend, there is at least one other journalist who I know of who has been given this detailed information and is going to be coming out with it. And how do I know that? Well, number one, I was told by my sources. And number two, I was told who the person was, and I spoke to him yesterday on the phone.
Okay, we'll be right back, folks. Stay tuned here on the American Freedom Network.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
And we're back. Dave Hodges with me from thecommonsenseshow.com. thecommonsenseshow.com. You'll also see his articles posted up at revolutionradio.org. And you need to check it out, folks. The bankers, David, we, over the last 3-4 years, we've had 400 or 500 of them, fairly young folks, all of a sudden announced their retirement, and, we need to spend more time with our families, yes. But within the last 60 days here, we've had 30, what do you say? Unexplained deaths, suicides. The stress of it all just got to them, and they jumped off the building in 33, does that ring a bell? 33rd floor in London. Yeah. Hung myself, and the rope was too short and my feet were on the ground.
Well, that's what's happening, and Randy, let me take you back a little bit and tell you what's kind of led up to this. Going back into last summer, and I want to give credit where credit's due, Alex Jones actually covered a missing nuke out of Texas at a base there, and on the same day, and it wasn't coincidental, Lindsey Graham, a freaked-out Lindsey Graham, goes on national television and says, we need to hurry up and attack Syria, or there's going to be a nuclear bomb detonated in Charleston Harbor. And he looked like a blithering idiot. This man had seen a ghost.
Yes.
And those two events are connected. What we know now, and this was revealed by ex-CIA agent Jim Garrow, who's making the talk show circuit, and I'm having him on again at the end of next month, but what we know now is that Alex Jones was completely correct. Lindsey Graham was reacting to a real threat. The military stopped this, and they transported the nuclear device 500 miles out to sea, and they detonated it. The Russians called it what it was in Voice of Russia. They said it was a nuclear detonation. We reported the event as something like a 4.5 earthquake. But the fact is that the military stopped a false flag attack in South Carolina. Lindsey Graham found out about it, freaked out. Now, he's a globalist, but he's kind of saying, not in my backyard, you're not. And that's why he went out and just acted like an absolute moron on national TV, because he was scared to death. More than
the moron he already is.
Well, he is a moron. Yeah, absolutely. It just shows you don't have to have talent to work for the New World Order. But there was another event that I was keenly aware of beginning in September, and I actually said I think this is going to be a false flag attack, and that was the Grid X2 drill in the middle of November, in which we were going to do a simulated power takedown in anticipation of a terrorist attack, and all the major agencies were involved. And I thought, this is the breeding ground for how false flag attacks happen. But then I found out that the Russians and the Chinese were involved in a highly sensitive and secure drill, and I said, nope, they're not going to do that, not with the Russians and Chinese involved. So I looked at that event, and I thought, well, that's really mysterious on why this changed so quickly. Well, Jim Garrow and one of my military sources told me that we headed off this attack. And they weren't at liberty to tell me exactly how it was done. I suspect it was done with inside people, which is why I don't have operational details. But this attack was headed off, and shortly after that, isn't it interesting, that's when Obama started to tear up the nuclear command. He fired one of the nuclear commanders for using bad poker chips in a poker game, like the president has that kind of time.
Yeah.
And he fired these other nuclear leaders really just on a whim. and he has turned the entire nuclear command structure upside down. Come to find out, Obama doesn't have full control of the nuclear arsenal. The military won't give it to him. He does not have control of the nuclear submarine fleet. They have changed their protocols because they fear that Obama has sold them out to the Chinese and the Russians. And basically, this is a coup that's going on right now with the military standing down in the face of Obama's orders. The reason he didn't attack Syria? Because the military told him, no, we're not going to go along with you on this. We'll publicly embarrass you. And this all started, Randy, and I had inside information on this, and if I can just kind of tip my own hat for a second, I reported on this in October of 2012, within a month of Ambassador Stevens' murder, and make no doubt about it, he was murdered, but he was also a CIA arms dealer. He gave the Stinger missiles to Al-Qaeda to the tune of 20,000, and they had to kill him coming up to the election because this was beginning to leak out, and dead men tell no tales. Well, at that time, to revisit Benghazi, what a lot of people didn't report, and later, after I wrote it, Glenn Beck picked up on it 6 months later, and Michael Savage picked up on it somewhere around 4 months later. And what I reported was there was a rescue effort that was going to be launched to rescue Ambassador Stevens in opposition to Obama's direct orders not to intervene. General Ham, the head of AFRICOM, was going to launch a ground mission using helicopters, and Admiral Guyette of Carrier Task Force 3 was providing air cover using drones and F-16s. Both were arrested by their number 2, and as they turned out, these number 2 were members of the CIA, and they were working on behalf of the administration, and they stopped the rescue effort, and the rest was history. But this is why this is significant. You had 2 of the top 4 military commanders in the Middle East that were engaged in disobeying a direct presidential order in a war zone, because we were talking about attacking Iran directly in those days. So you had 2 of the top 4 commanders that were sacked. That is a huge deal in a combat zone.
Yeah.
So what did the military tell me about this? Well, my military contacts told me, had they rescued Stevens, they would have basically tried to get the courts to give him immunity in exchange for testimony against the administration, and this entire administration would have fallen like a house of cards for their role in arming Al-Qaeda, the supposed attackers in 9/11. But when Guyette and Ham were arrested and stripped of their commands, this coup failed. But here's the point. There's been a move on the part of this military now to unseat this president and unseat his communist interests, going back to at least 2012 with the death of Ambassador Stevens, and to bring it up and put a exclamation mark on the end of this. This hasn't ended. The assassination of these bankers, the bankers are the ones that are really behind what's happening in this country. They're the ones that pull the strings. They decide when the false flag events are going to happen, only for the alphabet soups to carry it out. These bankers are being assassinated by ex-military and ex-military commandos like the Navy SEALs, and they're sending a real clear message here. Make no mistake about it. There is a war going on right now, and unfortunately, I'm afraid that the other side will strike back, and we're going to start to see some of our ex-military commanders ending up dead as well, too. This is a Chicago gang-like style situation that's going on right now in the world. This is high-stakes poker. I believe the banksters want to pull a major false flag, roll out martial law, bring in the Russian troops, bring in the Chinese troops, and all the other ones that will wear the blue helmets of the UN, and lock this country down. And this is what this military group is trying to avoid.
Because the bankers, they own Blackwater, Z, whatever it is called now, and Wackenhut, and there's a whole proliferation of these security companies. So, could we see the bankers starting to release their dogs onto our veterans?
Well, this administration, and I'm speaking about Obama, is no friend of any veteran, as they can tell you. But yes, but I don't think it's going to be just the veterans. I think what we're going to see is an acceleration of their plans to bring down this country and establish their own version of the New World Order with one world government, one world currency. And to do that, you've got to take down the U.S. They now have a formidable foe, which are ex-military who are organizing. Now, let's go back to the MIAC report that really surfaced in the American media back in 2008. A lot of people said, why in the world would DHS categorize veterans, returning veterans, as domestic terror threats? Well, let's cycle forward to 2014. If you're going to mount a counterinsurgency and a guerrilla war effort in terms of the Civil War resistance to the takeover of this country, who would you want to go after first as your foot soldier? Well, your Sabatos would very clearly be veterans.
Yes.
This is why the veterans were singled out, and this is why they're being mistreated. But no, I'm calling for retaliation from the bankers at a much higher level. I think you're going to start to see some of these generals who've been shown the door. I think they're going to start ending up dead. That would be my prediction. And don't you find it interesting, Randy? You've got 260-plus military commanders fired by Obama. This is unprecedented in American history, and not one of them has written a book.
No.
Not one of them has gone on Fox News, talked to Judge Napolitano about all that's going on wrong in the administration. They are being strangely quiet, and I think I've just told you the reasons why.
Well, and also that the low-level officers, the missile silo guys that were, cheating on their tests and, using drugs. And so, he's clearing the whole deck, isn't he?
Randy, I don't believe those allegations.
No.
My dad was high-level naval intelligence, and he helped install the first nuclear weapons on the first Navy ship. He was in charge of rewiring the Combat Information Center on the carrier Roosevelt. And he and I have talked about security, compartmentalization of intelligence, security checks. Heck, we used to get the visits from either the Secret Service or the FBI and my family every 6 months. So I know a little bit about what I speak in this because I've lived through it. And what I can tell you is these kinds of activities did not go on inside a nuclear arsenal, the most secure facilities in the world, and have them escape scrutiny. These are made-up allegations designed to overturn the nuclear power structure that Obama is desperately trying to get control over. And the reason we're not giving him control, and I say we because I identify with the military in this case, is because he will use one or more of these nuclear weapons in a false flag attack to bring on martial law.
Or, if nothing else, use them as an EMP.
Well, that was the thinking with Grid X2, to launch 2 ICBMs, mid-range ICBMs, over mid-continent United States, and the explosion you get would take out about 90% of the power grid in this country.
And then we would be back to we would be back to even beyond the Dark Ages because, no one
1870. I've read the Naval War College projections, and also my individual Congressman Trent Franks here of Arizona, he has been at the forefront of speaking out about that we need to shield our power grid, with basically Faraday cages to protect against EMP blasts. And I've attended some of his briefings he's held locally. In fact, he had one of them in my own church, the Community Church of Joy, and he had a 30-minute video produced by the DOD and Congressman Frank's office, and they made projections that paralleled the Naval War College. If you had two nuclear blasts over mid-continent United States and over 90% of the power grid went down, what you would see, number one, was 60% of the people in this country would be dead within a year, and within 2 years the casualty rates would be 90%. Major cause of death in the long term would be starvation and dysentery because of bad water and water that would mix with sewage. And that's the biggest threat that Americans face. In the early days, cause of death would be very random in terms of you would have hordes of people looking for food because nothing would be shipped. The grocery store shelves would be empty in a matter of hours. And certainly people would begin to starve to death and begin to prey on each other's neighbors in search of supplies of water and food to sustain life. And that doesn't even count the medicine that wouldn't be shipped for people that have chronic medications, which is about 1 in 4 Americans.
Or the millions that would go through withdrawal because they don't have their Luvox or Prozac or Zoloft.
Well, that's a factor, but the big ones are food and water, and that's an EMP attack. That's what I thought was coming with Grid X2, and as I told you, the military, from what I've been told, was able to head that off. But Obama has not been deterred from rolling out foreign mercenaries to subjugate this country. And let me just point to one thing. I could go through a litany of sightings and eyewitness accounts and people that have come on my radio show to report on this, but I'll just cut right to the heart. In the RIMPAC war games, the largest war games in the world, in which normally 12 to 14 nations participate with the United States in the Pacific and they practice against Chinese and Russian military tactics, both air and naval. Well, this year, the Russians and Chinese have been invited to participate as an ally in the RIMPAC war games. Now, wait a minute. They're supposed to be the enemies that we're preparing for. So, to me, these are no longer war games. These are training exercises for an international peacekeeping force that will enforce martial law.
Yeah. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Stay with us, caller. We'll get to you right after this break here on the American Freedom Network.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution
And we're back. Dave Hodges, my guest. You can find his website, thecommonsenseshow.com. Thecommonsenseshow.com. You can link there on Sunday nights to listen to his radio show on RBN. And we've got a caller online. Who we got?
Yeah, this is Brian in Northern Colorado.
Hello, Brian.
How you doing? I have, personally, I've been mulling over, going back and forth between, whether Obama complete Jekyll, or whether, and very smart, or whether he's a cigarette-smoking, golf-playing, sports junkie. And I was just curious what your, and he doesn't care, and he's just completely controlled by his handlers, Brzezinski and whatnot. But I was curious what your guest had to say. Like, if you think he's getting ready to pop on our nuclear arsenal there, then it sounds like he's very witty and just going and playing the role. Is that clear, or am I kind of making no sense?
Dave, I'll let you jump in there.
Well, I heard about 3/4 of that. Some of that cut out on my end, but I did think I hear enough to formulate a response. First of all, let's not underestimate the man's intelligence. He did go to Harvard Law School. He is one of the most skilled orators to inhabit the White House. He's on a level with Ronald Reagan in terms of his speaking ability and his ability to wow a crowd when it so motivates him. In terms of how we view him, I think right now, I think what I see in him is really surprised. I think he was surprised how controlled he was when he assumed the office. And I see a guy that's kind of retreated into vacations and playing golf. And, I'll do what my globalist bankster handlers tell me to do. But nonetheless, I'm kind of dismayed that the president doesn't have any more power than what he has. And I'll tell you something from my own family history. My dad told me when it came to some of the exotic technology that we were getting from ex-Nazi scientists, my dad worked in the tail end days of that at Martin Marietta, actually now called Lockheed Martin. He said the president was on level 16 for security in terms of having access to some of this information. It got filtered 15 levels above him. So I think that shocked Obama as to the level that he is at. He is a mid-level manager for the globalist New World Order. And, Randy, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the final part of your caller's comments or question.
Well, basically, I was, you pretty much answered it. I was just, I always go back and forth saying, man, he's, some of the stuff he says, I'm like, man, he's witty. And some of the, the executive action, I always, obviously, I think, he's out to get us, and he hates the concept of freedom and liberty and personal.
Well, let's make no mistake about it. He is out to get us. He is a decided communist. He was born to communists. He was bred by communists, raised by communists, and he has surrounded himself with communists in the White House. And I'm not having a paranoid attack of Senator Joe McCarthy, but I'll tell you this. He was born to Ann Dunham. Ann Dunham worked for Tim Geithner's father from the Ford Foundation, a CIA front as an economist in Malaysia. And then you look at his real dad, Frank Marshall Davis, and that's been revealed 9 times Sunday. And he was on the FBI watch list for being a communist leader for 17 years. His family, Obama's family handed him off to Satoru, and then they handed him off to Bill Ayers of the Weatherman Underground, and he launched his political career from their Hyde Park neighborhood. The late Larry Grathwohl really detailed that well. I've got 2 articles up on my website that might interest you.
And let's not forget Dr. Zygmunt. But, I grew up in Burbank, California, and I remember in the 80s, we had a neighbor who was a German and worked at Lockheed Martin, and, he was very sketchy character. He used to mow his lawn at night. We always used to make fun of him and wonder, like, what a weirdo, but there's no question, and drove Volkswagens, and there's no question in my mind that he was one of the scientists that came over and saved.
Well, I think you're absolutely right on that point. But what I was going to reference for 2 articles I wrote about Obama's background that really shapes him. He's the right guy with the right philosophy to do the globalist bidding. He is indeed a communist. He's a wealth redistributor, which is the definition of communism. And if you go and you Google on my website, I've got a search engine, The Russians Are Coming Part 1 and The Russians Are Coming Part 2, I detail his background. I get into what the Russian defectors said they were going to do to undermine America, and it reads like a blueprint of what's happening today. And in Part 2, I get into Obama's background. A lot of it's based on Sheriff Joe Arpaio's research on Obama's eligibility to run for office, given the fact he's a foreign national, and also on the work of the late Larry Grathwohl. And it's all right there for people to read. The hypertext links are there, and people can see Obama is the right communist at the right time to usher in the New World Order. I just think he's disillusioned at how little power he really has.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you talk about having us in a web from top to bottom. I'm getting ready to go into a Northern Colorado community meeting for smart growth. And, they have with this smart grid and these smart meters, and from the local all the way up to D.C. and then all the way into, on a worldwide level. Some of these bigwigs, they got satellites up there. I just read an article the other day that they want to beam Wi-Fi to everybody. Well, you put a microchip in everybody and you beam Wi-Fi to them, guess what? We're right there on the cusp, and it's, and then there's other times when I see the sun coming up every morning, and it's like, obviously we're in God's hands, but I'll tell you what, if we're not on the cusp and in the crux right now, I don't know where we are.
Well, we're clearly in the crosshairs of the globalists. There's no question about that. And up there in northern Colorado where you're at, and I don't know your specific community, but in areas like Fort Collins, the globalists already control that city. It's called Agenda 21 in Ickley. And
I know Ickley. I'm going into a meeting right now in Fort Collins for Ickley. And it's a mess. And, of course, with this university, we got the seed storage bank, all the, genetically modifying, splicing animals, all that happening right here. And we are in a hotbed of what's going on a national level, and in one respect, we have it right here. So it's interesting to be part of it and be able to study it and see what's happening. But you would just be amazed at how many sensors, and up on every light pole in northern Colorado, there are like 1 million cameras, sensors. You don't even know what they're doing.
So Brian, when you go into the meeting, hold up, if you have the Colorado Constitution with you, hold that up. But hold that up, or whatever, hold that up and say, tell me where it is in here, the document that's supposed to be, operating document, that gives you the authority to do what you're planning to do here.
Yeah. Well, the problem, I hear you, Randy, 100%, but the problem is we are so corrupt up here that, you don't want to stamp on your forehead saying that, it's difficult. I hear you 100%, and I do want to stand, and I'm going in here to listen, and if I have my opportunity to talk, I will. But I have a small business here, and I work for contractors, and I work for people building these buildings and doing the smart growth, and it's like you kind of have to pick your battles, and you have to be smart about who you tell. I find that when people are by themselves, everybody has it in the back of their conscience what's going on. And everybody knows it's, but what can you do is all you hear. And everybody knows it's really bad, and the tracking and the tracing, and every time I'm at a checkout counter or when I'm one-on-one. But when you get into situations like this, where you're in a town meeting, I mean, they can put the clamp on you really quick.
Yes. Brian, thanks for calling. Let us know how the meeting comes out.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
And we're back. Before I forget again, last week I gave out the wrong website for, instead of is there global warming, it should be is there global cooling.com. Is there global cooling.com. Down at the bottom of the first paragraph, there's a video link right there. Watch that link from the United Kingdom. And they rain on the CO2 guys' parade. So, Brian's going in there to an Agenda 21 meeting. But what does that have to do? How does that tie in? We started out talking about all the dead bankers, which we're up to, 30 in the last 60 days?
Yeah, I'm not even sure what the head count is, no pun intended, but I think that what we're looking at here, there's an untold number of high-level bankers going down whose names are not out there in the public venue, so I don't think we fully know the number. But your principle is correct, Randy. There are a lot of bankers who are dying very unnatural deaths. And I bet your caller, Brian, I bet he's going into meetings with people like Stacy Lynne and Virginia Farver, friends of mine that live in Fort Collins that are fighting against that tyranny. Yeah. And to answer your question about what is Agenda 21 in ICLEI have to do with dead bankers? Well, let's talk about what Agenda 21 is for a second. It's basically the takeover of your life. It's controlling all the power that you'll use, or should I say all the power they'll take away from you. It's the elimination of all personal property rights. It's the elimination of freedom. It's the complete installation of the police-state surveillance grid, 100%. This would make George Orwell envious. But the Agenda 21 factor, I think, is a post-occupation implementation. In other words, we're seeing it beta tested now in places like Santa Cruz, Austin, Texas, and of course Fort Collins, Colorado, which has been called the jewel of the ICLEI empire. But I think first America is going to go through conquest, and you could argue that's already happened, occupation, that's in the process of happening, and basically a restructuring, or what Obama called a fundamental transformation of the country. And then when we come out the other side of these conflicts, if the banksters are victorious, we will see the rollout of the complete Agenda 21 lifestyle. I think what we see right now is skirmishing, beta testing, finding out how things work, but Agenda 21 will clearly be the guiding light in a post-occupied America.
Now, Agenda 21 is also part of that is a inventory of all of the Earth's resources. And that includes your house, folks. That includes the amount of time that's left in your life to produce for the bankers. That's what Obamacare is about, is to eliminate those that are non-producers.
That's correct. You're exactly right on that point. That has its roots in the old 19th century English version of social Fabianism, or Fabian socialism, depending on the phrase that you want to use. But I think that when we look at what's happening, they own everything in an Agenda 21 world. But what we don't often consider is, in the final stages, they own you. Transhumanism will one day totally merge with Agenda 21, and you will have a race bred for slavery. These are their words, folks. This isn't Dave Hodges' interpretation. This is what the globalists write in their white papers. They want to have a slave race, but they want to reduce the human population by 90%, and I've written several articles on that where I quote them, and quotes from people like Kissinger and Ted Turner and David Rockefeller to officials in the UN. In fact, I'll tell you how bad it gets, Randy, with the UN. You take the guy who's the head of Eco Initiative, basically he was in charge of ecology projects for the UN, David Spangler. He said, no one will come to the New World Order without first pledging to Lucifer. That kind of tells you where this is going. But on the flip side of transhumanism, they'll have the dumbed-down, population-reduced human slaves. And then on the other side, transhumanism is about making people who can afford it immortal. And people like Daniel Estulin have written terrific books on transhumanism, and they detail, in the words of the globalists themselves, Daniel details what's coming. These people hope through spare parts technology and morphing man with machine that they will have certain people, such as the global elite today that we know their names well, the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, will live indefinite lives. And the rest of us, if you're allowed to survive and serve them, you will live very shortened lives and very depraved lives of service to these people. And that's the kind of world that we're heading towards. And when I use phrases, Randy, like the balance of humanity, the stake of humanity is up for grabs right now. Are we as a race going to survive in our present form? Some people take those words as hyperbole, high headlines designed to attract attention. After reading what the transhumanists want to do, I take their words very seriously, and I'm very sincere when I say, in fact, I'll quote Daniel Estulin in his book. He said, our children that are alive today may be the last humans that are intact in the form that we know humans for the foreseeable future, if these people are allowed to get their way.
Oh, just as in the days of Noah. Let's see, Noah...
Sodom and Gomorrah looks tame compared to what's coming.
Yes, but Noah was perfect in his generations, his genetics. And that's what they're trying to do through that transhumanism science, we've got to speed up this evolutionary process, Dave. We can all be.
I don't know that I even call it process. It's more like a quantum jump, and that's how I'm viewing this. And in fact, if you really want to get conspiratorial, and this is just the world according to Dave Hodges' hypothesis, but we have plenty of evidence to support that transhumanism is alive and well and progressing very quickly, and it's very abnormal by current standards in terms of what they want to do. But what also is going on the planet is really concerning to me. We have Fukushima that's happened under very mysterious circumstances, destroying life in the Pacific, ocean life, aquatic life, destroying the food supply with the fish, radiation plumes headed to America. These are the reports. And I hear us coming up on the break, and I'll finish this thought afterwards.
And we'll be right back. Stay tuned, folks, here on the American Freedom Network.
Union Colony Insurance in Greeley takes the time to welcome our troops home. Remember when you see them to thank the men and women in our military service for their dedication, selflessness, and courage, and continue to pray for the safety of those still serving overseas. May God bless our troops, and may God bless America. This message of appreciation from Union Colony Insurance at 1218 8th Avenue in Greeley. Call 352-9500 for all your insurance needs from A to Z. Union Colony. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. This is the America News Network. Jensen Arms says if you only have one life to live, why not get the most out of it? There's no need to make yourself sick, dependent, and useless. Yet so many do this to themselves each day by using drugs. Let's give life a chance. Drugs are never the answer. And this message is sponsored by Jensen Arms. They're working proudly with KHNC radio station to bring you this important message. That's Jensen Arms saying, keep your radio tuned right here.
Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
And we're back. Dave Hodges, my guest. You can find his website, thecommonsenseshow.com. Thecommonsenseshow.com. His articles, he's out there on the cutting edge of letting you know what's going on, folks. You need to wake up to all of this. You were going to finish off a thought there, Dave.
Well, the transhumanists are not just morphing humanity with GMOs and fluoridated water and all the poisons we know that were made to endure, including chemtrailing. But if you look at the Gulf oil spill, what a name for the event. But it's basically slowed down and almost stopped the Gulf Stream. And this is why Europe has had its coldest winters forever, particularly in Russia and Northern Europe. And it's because the Gulf Stream does not mitigate the Arctic winters, the Arctic waves, I should say, coming down from the North Pole. And so we're looking at a possible ice age. I've had a couple of foreign exchange students from Northern Europe who've told me they're taught that at some point in time when the ice age comes that they may have to relocate to Africa. This is actually being taught to school kids in Europe. We're not hearing about it here in America because our media is so controlled. And then as I was talking, as we went into the break about Fukushima and the dangers posed by Fukushima, and you have these radioactive plume clouds that are circling the planet, and we're breathing this stuff. It's getting into our food supply. It's getting into our groundwater. And then you look at the poisons that have emanated from the Gulf oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. All these sinkholes are caused by a combination of the Corexit, the oil that's gotten into the water table, destroys salt domes, and we're seeing these massive sinkholes develop. How far will this reach? Will this poison really permeate our entire water supply? And so you see weather wars going on this planet. And people, if you say that can't happen, really, well, you Google a document called Air Force Owning the Weather 2025. And I know one of the generals very well who is involved in this. This technology has been with us for over 25 years.
Yeah.
So, Randy, we look at this stuff, and it's almost like the planet's being terraformed. Not only are we changing humanity and its basic physical structure, we're terraforming the planet. And I'm saying, for what? What are the globalists trying to transform themselves into? That is a question. I really don't know the answer to that question.
Well, let's see. They're serving their master, Lucifer. This all comes down to the spiritual warfare, and it's manifested in front of our eyes in the physical of all these plans of the rich men of the earth.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Randy, I was friends, and I still am, with a gentleman named Vance Davis, who was ex-NSA, and the late A.C. Griffith, who was on my show a number of times, ex-NSA. And Vance and I had a friendship that went back into the early 90s. When I first heard him on the old Art Bell show, I said, I bet that guy knew my dad. Well, he didn't, but he knew of my dad's work. And we hooked up and became friends. And what he told me that was kind of interesting, he said in his high-level NSA briefings, he said he and his compadres were taught that this is a battle on this planet ultimately between good and evil, and it's been going on for a long time. Certainly we've identified it in that book called the Bible. And he said that really what the evildoers want to do, to coin a George Bush phrase, is to really unlock the soul and grab the soul. And he told me that something was coming that will be referred to as transhumanism. Vance told me this in 1994 when the word was not in the parlance of our country. And he said that the goal is to get the soul, but if the globalists can't get our soul, they'll transform humanity into something that won't represent anything that God created.
Yes. Just as in the days of Noah. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back after the top of the hour news here. Question, comment, 877-254-7524. Phone lines are open.
Constitutional Moments are brought to you throughout the day through the generosity of C&C Prototype Machine, Boulder, Colorado. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. This is The Lion, KHNC 1360 AM, Johnstown, Denver.
And we're back with the second hour of To Free America here on the American Freedom Network, and we still need your help. We need to, we need to hold off the ASPCA and the Humane Society SWAT team that's probably going to be coming out to check on the squirrel in the transmitter. We need your help. We need to pay the phone bill. We need to pay the light bill. We need to finish paying for the furnace. We need your help because you will not hear these shows on Clear Channel. Call Michael, 800-205-6245, 800-205-6245. You can make a pledge on your plastic. Order a copy of today's show, past shows we've done, other shows here on the network. That helps us out. You can pick up that envelope and address it to AFN, P.O. Box 1750, P.O. Box 1750, Johnstown, Colorado, Federal Occupation Zone 80534. Your check, your money order, much appreciated. We'll even still take the fraudulent reserve notes. Other currencies, sure, why not? You could even throw in some just weights and measures, the Lord's money, at the very least. Tell your friends and family. Tune in, 1360 AM on the internet at America News Net, AmericaNewsNet.com, and call the advertisers, folks. Let them know you're out there, you're listening. You appreciate their support of American Freedom Network. Give Pat a call at Great Plains Solar, 303-239-9963, 303-239-9963. And just for the practicality of it all, you can go green. Yes. Everybody's supposed to be green. My guest today, Dave Hodges. You can catch his Sunday night radio show. Go to thecommonsenseshow.com, thecommonsenseshow.com. Sunday nights, what times are that, Mountain?
Mountain is 8 p.m. to 11 p.m.
8 to 11 p.m.
And we are the good counter to coast to coast.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about what's going on over coast to coast, if you don't mind.
Let's catch this caller real quick. Hello, caller.
Hello?
Yes, who's this?
Hi, my name is Stacy. I was just calling in to thank Dave for all of his work.
Stacy Lynne, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's good to hear your voice on a local station. I just want you to know that Dave Hodges has been instrumental in connecting me with some people in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and you were talking about Agenda 21 in Fort Collins earlier on your show, and the same consulting firm who brought Agenda 21 to Fort Collins in the form of Plan Fort Collins has gone north of the border to Cheyenne, and Cheyenne is in the middle of adopting an update to their Plan Cheyenne. It is the same plan as Fort Collins has, and Cheyenne is headed for financial disaster because of Fort Collins' influence. So I wanted all the people in the listening area to know that there is a public meeting on Saturday, February 22nd, in Cheyenne, Wyoming at 3 p.m. At the Laramie County Public Library, and I'd invite everyone from northern Colorado to attend the Cheyenne meeting and help these people try to protect their unique western community.
Laramie County, or Laramie County.
Laramie County in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Okay. At the public library.
Yes, and that's a 2200 Pioneer in Cheyenne, in downtown Cheyenne. And the other very exciting thing about Cheyenne is there is a Laramie County Commissioner who is very outspoken against the plan. There are other elected officials who are very interested in learning about the damaging aspects of the plan, and they're stepping up to try to protect their constituents. So it's pretty cool to see.
Oh, absolutely. Stacy, I got to have get your contact information and get you on the show here.
I would love that. I know you. People text me all the time when you're talking about Dave Hodges and issues in northern Colorado. So you have a great following, and I'm grateful for all of the work you do as well.
Well, we got to. If we don't stand up to this, if we don't stand up, folks, they plan to take everything you have, including your life.
Right, and I would like to just give you one example about what's happening in Cheyenne right now. They are the Downtown Development Association is considering a partnership with a private business, and what they're not being real honest about is once that private business is accepted by the Downtown Development Authority, they use a business model that is not sustainable. And so they're planning to go to the taxpayers to make up the difference in that. It's happening in Loveland, Colorado, with this same private business where they basically prey on these small communities that are struggling, and they are actually open with their business model that's not sustainable. So then they go to the taxpayers to make up the difference.
And what kind of business are we talking about here?
It's an art It's an art firm, so it's called Art Space, and so they bring in artists to a community. They subsidize the housing. They initially subsidize it through this private business and through the downtown development associations, but then they're not able to keep that financial support going. So then they go to the taxpayers.
Yes, because all of the middle class out here have all this money to spend on art. Yes. We'll turn into another Taos in Santa Fe, and, well...
No, it gets a lot worse than that. What Stacy's saying here about what's in Fort Collins and how this cancer is spread to Laramie is correct. I've been in contact with Barry Meyer, who's a talk show host from the Cheyenne area, and it's not just Cheyenne that's in danger, Stacy. I'm sure you've heard of what's going on in Riverton, where the EPA stole 1 million acres of land from the people of Riverton and gave it to a Native American tribe for God knows what reason. So we're seeing massive land theft going on in Wyoming as well, too.
Right, and Barry Meyer, I do want to give credit to him as well. He actually had me on his show after Dave connected us, and his radio show is at End Time Talk Radio. He has logged all of the public meetings on Plan Cheyenne since he and I connected a few weeks ago. So if you can go to his website and listen to what these officials are planning to do, in spite of the fact that hundreds of Cheyenne residents are opposing this plan, they're being ignored entirely.
Oh, but the earth is flat. The earth is flat. Stacy, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you, Stace.
Yeah.
Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
You can find his website at thecommonsenseshow.com. Thecommonsenseshow.com. The website I gave out on last Thursday's show is the correct website is istthereglobalcooling.com. Go down to the bottom of the paragraph, go to that video link there, and watch that, and it destroys their argument on CO2 and global warming. istthereglobalcooling.com. And we've got Laramie County Commissioner online. Can I have your first name?
Yeah, it's M. Initial Lee Hasenauer, Tea Party organizer up here in Laramie County. Cheyenne, Wyoming is our capital. I told myself I can listen to myself better than they're listening to me, so I ran for county commissioner and got elected in 2012. And now we're hip deep in Clarion and Association pushing a Plan Cheyenne, just like they're doing in Fort Collins, Boulder, and Denver, Colorado. This is ICLEI, UN Agenda 21, garbage, and forcing people through MAP 21 to take government funding to go green. And we cannot thank Miss Stacy Lynne, who has helped us so much to identify those code words. And we're actually seeing a whole new way of government. Planning departments are now creating boards to have city, county, state, and federal people come in and sit at our public works meetings without an elected official being there. And I witnessed Clarion Association, and if you think they're just in Colorado and Wyoming, you're fooled. They were calling from the state of Wisconsin, and they were talking to an advisory committee and doing a PowerPoint presentation, and I have a 2-minute clip video of them talking about MAP 21 funding and all the stuff that goes into MAP or Plan Cheyenne. So we are having town hall meeting this weekend, and encourage our local public to come out and learn more and become an army of one. And those that are informed voters are the best people to come in front of the commissioners. And when 130 people show up and only 4 of the people that are for it are working for the MPO and Plan Cheyenne, and they still vote it through, I'm telling you, there's something wrong, and there's something huge behind this movement to push forcing us to go green against the will of the people. And I will stand up against it and stand for the liberty and freedoms in our Constitution every time. This document, Wyoming Constitution, 76 pages. Plan Cheyenne is 500 pages. But if one little thing doesn't go with the Constitution, and it's all null and void. And this little Constitution book has put more egg on the faces of politicians that didn't listen to the will of the people than I know of any other document out there.
Yes.
So we have hope when we are encouraged with folks like Stacy, and trust me, when they come in my county, I want this stuff stopped.
Well, okay, here's one talking about the Constitution. Agenda 21, Kyoto 1 and 2, all these things are, quote, treaties that are supposed to be passed, signed by the President and passed by the Senate by 2/3 of the vote. Now, none of this, Agenda 21, none of Kyoto, none of that has ever been passed as a treaty. So how, this is the question for both you and Dave, how is it that Cheyenne, Fort Collins, can have the authorization to put in place parts of a treaty that has never been ratified?
Here's how they do it. They bring these great plans. They dangle the carrot of $114 million of federal money, which we know we don't have. We're not getting free money. We're adding to the debt if elected officials take it. They promise you free roads, but you've got to put roundabouts and beautification. You've got to put bicycle paths. You've got to do the green part to get the money. Then, if it was just a plan and you didn't vote on it, and it would be just a guideline. But when the elected officials vote on it and then sign it because they're greedy and they want to take the federal dollars, You know, I told somebody I do not believe in global warming, but I do believe in man-made global regulations that stick around forever and ever. And if you say this is free money, it's just pure evil to take the money and put that indictment on our children to pay back. Or if you say, I want the money, and if we don't take it, somebody else will, that's code words for big government. But if you get an elected official that educates himself and says no to the government green, you can have your green, and I'll keep my liberty and freedom, then that's the kind of candidate you want in office. There's just not very few of them that understand what's behind ICLEI and Agenda 21. They're pushing it from the bottom up. This should have been taken up by the Congress, sent to our legislators statewide, and then passed down from the state to the city and local government. But they know these cities are hurting for money, so the $114 million is a carrot on the stick, and most officials will grab that and take it and then sign on to it, and then it becomes a legal document through an ordinance. That's how they're doing it.
Okay.
It's a shame on them, and if we don't get enough people to speak out against it and start voting this stuff out, but you have to wean yourselves off of federal money and consider it federal debt and add into a $17 trillion debt, and it will absolutely destroy this country. But too much infrastructure at once, too much growth at once, too many changes at once. We have a Western heritage community with farmers and ranchers, and you know we have the largest outdoor rodeo ever. We need to keep that heritage, and if we don't, we'll lose America right here in the heartland, and we'll become a region of urban sprawl. And I think it was one black conservative said these will become slums where there's people that now live. He actually stated that these will become slums, and he was from New York. He said, I've witnessed and seen this. You know the first city that ever took on Agenda 21 and plan a plan like this? That was Detroit. Look at the mess it's in. So wake up, folks. Join the fight. Come to these meetings. Get involved, and let's take our country back.
Well, Lee, thanks for calling. And give us this Saturday, the 22nd, where's this going to be? Laramie County Public Library?
Yep, it's on Pioneer Street, and it's in the Cottonwood Room, 3:30 to 6. A lot of folks here locally. Last time we had close to 150 people there. We're looking for 200 this time around. We will see it go to the city council, and then it'll come to the county commissioners, and it goes through the elected body. Only thing I hope is we have an election year this year, and you know, it's so unconstitutional. It goes against Article 6, you know, and we've identified certain articles, 7 in the base codes, and the T zones, the T natural land uses, everything in it is just totally whacked out with what our community's used to and what we're trying to protect. And, you know, if we can't stop it, you know, because they're greedy and they want the money and pass it, then we might challenge it through an attorney, through the constitutional value. Then, like I said, that usually puts the egg on the face of those, you know, and there's a reason why you have an oath and you want to discharge your duties in your office with fidelity, so help us God. There's a reason why that oath is so important, and that is defend the Wyoming Constitution of the United States. So thank you for your time today. Again, thanks to people like Stacy helping us, and she'll be up here Saturday, and we're praying for Colorado and Wyoming that we can get a handle on this. But it takes a lot of people getting involved and calling talk shows and becoming an army of one with individuals pulling together, and then we're strong. If they try to divide us, then they will win. So good luck down there, and wish us luck up here.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling, Lee. We got another caller online. No caller.
Yeah, hey, Randy and Dave, this is Aaron there, Double A Aaron here in Fort Collins.
Aaron, how are you?
Doing as well as I can here in the People's Republic of Laramie County.
Yeah, I like to call it the People's Republic of Laramie County.
Well, I'm just calling to back up. Stacy is just such an awesome woman, you know, and what they're putting her through is unbelievable. And I can tell you as a man that nothing makes me more angry than watching a woman and her child be picked on by large forces like this. And I think that, you know, as the Johnny Cash song, you can run on for a long time, but sooner or later, God will cut you down. And I really think that this is, they really picked on the wrong group of people. They think they've got so much control and so much power, and they think that we're afraid, but, this is America. So.
Well, let me say something about Fort Collins. I had on Barry Meyer and someone named Virginia Farver in the first hour of my show last Sunday. And Virginia Farver is an activist, friends with Stacy Lynne. She's been up to Cheyenne. She's participating in that fight against Agenda 21. But her story is particularly unique. She did the opt-out of the smart meters that's part of Agenda 21, the smart meters that emit radiation, can be used as a surveillance device. And the city of Fort Collins sent her a letter saying, if you don't stop the opt-out and agree to have a smart meter put on your house, we're going to shut your power off on February the 14th, which is why I had her on last Sunday. I'm happy to report that they haven't done that yet. But I want you just to consider for a second about how evil these people are. If you people in northern Colorado don't need me to tell you about your winters. I grew up in Aurora. I know what it's like up there. It's bad enough in the Denver area. And to shut someone's power off in the middle of February is really, I think, an act of manslaughter. And this is what they wanted to do in Virginia. Now, she doesn't think she's out of the woods. She challenged it. They have backed off. They're formulating their response, and she's waiting for that now. But this is how evil these people are up there. And, let me mention something, and I talked about this the last time I was on your show, Randy, and Stacy Lynne and what happened to her. She was fighting against Agenda 21, the same as she is right now. And the courts, let's say the governor of Arizona, or governor of Colorado, I should say, brought in Julie Kuntz Field, a judge, and without any allegations of parental wrongdoing, they stole her son from her, gave him to the biological father, who Stacy said was not really much a part of the child's life. And now Stacy hasn't seen her child in almost a year and a half. She doesn't know where he's at. Her parental rights have never been severed. And all of this was in retaliation for her Agenda 21 activities. And I've written about it on my website. If you go Google on the search engine and you put down Stacy Lynne, Lynne, you'll come right to the article, and I describe the heinous corruption and the New World Order connections behind the people that stole Stacy's child, Jaden. And I hope Stacy's still listening, because, Randy, this is one of the worst cases I've ever seen. I've had Stacy on my show, I'd imagine, a dozen times in 2 years, because I am so outraged at this happening. And yet, here's Stacy, someone who can take lemon and turn it into lemonade, and she's turning into a crusader once again in the region in an attempt to try to restore some justice to her part of the state. She's to be commended for her great activity.
But they're going to pay. I couldn't agree more. And then to also bring up the beekeeper that was framed, Ben
Gilmore.
There's a movie that Stacy made, Burning the Beekeeper, on YouTube. Unbelievable, and it's all the same players.
Well, yeah, with the beekeeper, Ben Gilmore, he was an activist against a lot of the things that Stacy and many of you guys fight against up there. And he was framed for arson, and now he's serving a prison sentence. In fact, and I've talked to Stacy about the case, and I don't profess to know all the details, but what I've gathered was they actually arrested someone who confessed to the crime. And if I remember correctly, he was an illegal alien. They were holding him, and then mysteriously they released him, and very mysteriously this man ended up dead. And then Ben Gilmore was framed for the arson.
Yeah, you're talking about Gerardo Clutter Salazar.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for bringing that name up, because it had escaped my memory. That's typical of justice in Laramie County.
You want to stay with us, Aaron?
Sure. Thank you.
We'll be right back after these messages here on the American Freedom Network. And we're back. The website you need to go to is their globalcooling.com. is their globalcooling.com. I finally overcame my propagandization. Go to the bottom of the first paragraph, punch on that video link, and watch that. Put it in the hands of your county commission, your city council, and say, if you pass all these smart growth plans, all these sustainable things, all of these other things, you're basing this on fraudulent science, and then therefore you become part of the fraud upon the people. Double A Aaron Online, my guest Dave Hodges, thecommonsenseshow.com. What else you got for us, Aaron?
Well, I think the most suspicious thing in the whole Gilmore fire is the fact that the insurance, if you get into the insurance thing, it's been explained to me that you can't have a settlement unless you have a conviction. And that you had a hung jury the first time, and then the DA went after him the second time. That just seems kind of suspicious in itself. So there's a lot of details there, and I know Dave's covered it, and really the Burning the Beekeeper film is a great resource for anybody interested. But it's pretty scary when they can just go after somebody who was passing out The World According to Monsanto, Food Inc. DVDs. He was keeping the Occupy movement peaceful. He was supplying bees to farms all over the place, non-corporate farms primarily. The guy was winning awards all throughout Weld County and Johnstown for being the best beekeeper. And there is a cohesive agenda to destroy our food. So, this guy, it's just really upsetting. And, living up here in the land of beer and bicycles, it's just amazing how much people aren't in tune. They're watching the glowing idiot box, and they're too obsessed with acting like children when they're in their 30s, most of them.
Yes. Oh, Aaron, take the rest of the show, because I just saw that there's a rerun of Dancing with the Stars on. I got to catch it.
Yeah,
just kidding.
The Broncos. As long as the Broncos are winning, they'd rather go to the stadium and get groped like TSA.
Yeah, but their God died on them.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let me say something, since we get a lot of people calling in from Laramie County. I have such fond memories of visiting friends of mine that were attending CSU when I was at Denver University. And I have so many good friends in the Fort Collins area, so many great people up there. But you people who are driving down College Avenue right now, you need to take what I'm saying seriously. I'm an outsider now looking in. I live in the rural area north of Phoenix. And I have become involved in your politics because I see how corrupt it is. It's a weather vane for the rest of the country. It's the barometer of what's coming to the rest of the nation. You are being ruled by total criminals. That includes your city council. People like Lisa Papa need to go bye-bye. You need to get rid of that person off your city council. You need to get rid of your county commissioners. They are not for you. You are their enemy. You are in their way. You are standing in their way of getting more money from the Agenda 21 companies that profit from the tyranny that they're bringing to your county. And you need to stand up with them now. You need to follow what Stacy Lynne and others are doing in Fort Collins until every public official, including your county attorney, including your city attorney, they are all gone from public office. And until you do that, you're going to see a continued degradation of your lifestyle in Fort Collins.
But Dave, it's all going to be so wonderful with all these potted plants and bicycle paths and skipping down the yellow brick road.
Well, you just ride the bicycle path down the highway to hell, because that's what's happening up there in Laramie County, and it just breaks my heart.
Yes.
And it's such a stark contrast to like Weld County that is, has the 51st state initiative, and there's actually people that open carry over in Weld County. Well, I'll let somebody else get on the line here, guys, but my question to Dave, because I do read your articles every day, is what is your gut feeling of what's going to happen next? Are we going to be facing a major false flag terror event?
Well, that's, we covered that pretty extensively in the first hour, and I think that just to recap that, the short answer is yes. if Obama gets his way, he's being opposed by the disaffected military and disaffected ex-intelligence officers who are thwarting his plans for false flags, and that's what's behind all these murders of the bankers. I mean, we got people in this country that are no longer sitting back waiting to be victims. They are striking first at the root of the problem.
Thanks a lot. Keep it up, guys. Talk to you later.
Thanks for calling, Aaron. We've got another caller. Who we got?
This is Beverly from Fort Collins. How are you?
Hello, Beverly.
Thank you for having your guest on today. It's the first time I've heard him, and I haven't listened to you in a while for whatever reason, but I wanted to, you might have answered what I'm about to ask you as I was dialing and talking to Michael, but when you mentioned the jewel of the whatever, were you referring to Fort Collins as the jewel of this whole Agenda 21 thing?
Yeah, I've read literature in the past, and this goes back a few years, where Fort Collins was referred to as the jewel of the Ickley Empire. Like somehow it's a badge of honor to embrace Agenda 21 policies.
I see. Yeah, that's what I wanted you to just give me a capsule definition of what that meant. Everything, in other words, everything they're planning is going really well here.
Well, yeah, they're undefeated right now, but with people like Stacy and Virginia Farver standing up to this, I'm hopeful that they can wake up enough people that you can turn back the forces of Agenda 21. But I want to reiterate what I just said. Your entire political structure up there is complicit in what's going on. They are corrupt to the bone. It's kind of like Sodom and Gomorrah. Can you find 10 honest men? I don't think so. All of your public officials need to be unelected, and they need to be gone immediately. If you have recall provisions, you can't wait for the next election. And when November rolls around, you have to vote out every single incumbent.
I'd like to ask you if you happen to know what kind of support you have within the churches of Fort Collins. And then I have one other comment to make.
Boy, that's a loaded question, Beverly. I'm not aware of any. I talk to a lot of people who in Fort Collins who are Christians. But in terms of formally connecting to churches, I have not. And I have a real concern about the churches of America today, and I'll just say this very briefly. Any church that takes on a tax-exempt status, the 501c3, from the IRS is a government church, because they tell the pastors what they can and cannot preach from the pulpit, and that is censorship. And we who are Christians are to stand up to things like abortion, to wars of occupation in which we murder innocent civilians abroad. And if you do bring this up in your church, the IRS comes down on your pastor and threatens to take away the tax exemption. And I really don't think we can trust any churches that are 501c3 for that reason.
I suspected you were going to say that as at least part of your answer. And the final comment that I wanted to make, maybe a quick double one, because I've called before, I don't know if you remember, Randy, and my main concern as a Christian is the fact that, I hear on so many programs to stockpile this and stockpile that, and nobody ever really mentions stockpiling the Word of God in our hearts.
Yes.
And along that line, I just want to say...
Stay with us, Beverly. Stay with us.
Yep.
And we're back. Dave Hodges, my guest. TheCommonSenseShow.com is his website, TheCommonSenseShow.com. Sunday night radio show from 8 to 11 Mountain Time on RBN. You can go to TheCommonSenseShow.com and link in there. We've got Beverly online, and Beverly, the people out there need to grab the Word of God, and if it's only a few verses every day, read it out loud, because we're coming to a day here when the Bible and the true law are going to be outlawed.
Absolutely. You're so right. You're so right on everything you just said. And it's just recently God's given me like a revelation of the fact that, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been just reciting out loud so many verses that God has enabled me to memorize that are His promises, or at the very least a statement of fact according to Him, which makes it truth. And then I realized in Psalm 91, his truth, his word, his law is called a shield. And I really believe that he has had me building a shield around my family and those who I pray for, because I am so protected, Randy, I can't even get over it. And I really believe this is at least part of what we need to do as the church. And I know that for years, we have been hearing about 2 Chronicles 7:14. And I know that people, individuals are praying. I know that, and little groups here and there. But honestly, I see in my heart's eye, why are we not out almost in the streets crying out to God for his mercy and speaking his word? There seems to be, whether it's just a political issue on a regular station or even Christian radio, there's a missing element here in the strategies that people are trying to come up with to save this country, and it's prayer. It's crying out to God as a country to get out there and say, God, we're helpless. We're absolutely helpless without you. And that's all I really wanted to say, and I'm just so grateful that you had Stacy Lynne on today, too, because I have become familiar. I've met Virginia Farver as a result of one of your programs a few months ago, and I'm going to call her as soon as your show is over and see if I can go with her to Cheyenne on Saturday. God bless you all for doing what you're doing.
Well, I'm really glad that you keep such good company, Beverly, because I can't think of two more quality people to be in this fight with than Stacy and Virginia.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and God bless you richly.
We've got another caller online. Who we got? Hello, caller.
Hello?
Yes, who's this?
Oh, hi. I need no introduction, please.
Okay.
I understand the Timberline Church is really big into this ICLEI stuff. The other thing is, as tax-exempt crap for churches, I'll never forget sitting in the Catholic Church here in Fort Collins, and the priest read a letter from the bishop in Denver telling everybody how to vote. I never walked back in that church. Telling everybody how to vote, and what was up to vote that year was same-sex couples getting rights, like hospital rights for their same-sex spouse, and insurance rights. I will never forget it. The Catholic Church told us how to vote. I thought they couldn't do that. And
were they telling you to vote for it?
Stuff, it's the Timberline Church that's heavily involved.
So let me ask you: did the letter say to vote in favor of those provisions?
No. It would destroy the church. And this is the same church that had the pedophile priest that they sent up from one of the parishes down in Denver somewhere, one of the suburbs. Instead of prosecuting him, they sent him up here where he did his pedophiling. No, they said vote against it. It degrades the family, not like a pedophile priest would.
Okay.
So I never walked back in that church again. I'll never walk back in a Catholic church.
I've heard my pastor even say some things, and we're a 501c3, and that's why I'm looking for a new church home. But you do see some violations of that. If you had a large congregation, say 10,000 people, and the pastor was saying, go march here and go march here and protest against abortion, it wouldn't be long until the IRS visits them. I've seen it happen.
Yes. All right, thanks for calling. We've got another caller. Who we got?
Yeah, this is John from Northern Colorado.
Hello, John.
Yeah, very quickly. I want to get back to the so-called suicide bankers. Many of the bankers weren't just murdered here in the United States, but overseas. And two of them, I'd like to mention, if I remember correctly, one in England and one in Hong Kong, jumped off the building off the 33rd floor, which has Mason connotations about that.
I thought the same thing, exactly.
Yeah, and so I'd like to see the connection that either present U.S. military forces or former military people were involved with that. That's my first point. What do you think about that?
Like I said to Randy in the first hour, I've been tabbed as the eighth inning setup guy, and I've been given some pretty good information on what's going on with the bankers, but I don't have the full story. there's going to be a couple of colleagues of mine come out with that this weekend. If not sooner, it could be as early as tomorrow. I'm having one of these people on my show Sunday night, and I'm speaking about Doug Hagman, and we're going to have one heck of a discussion about the banksters and what's going on.
Right. One
thing I want to point out, and you said London, there's been several murders in London, and I was told high-level murders that have not reached the public view yet. And the London situation, the city of London, private banking for the Queen tied into the Jesuits. And, you want to get into a New World Order conspiracy? You know, if indeed these Navy SEALs and Army Rangers are carrying these hits out, what a great place to start to strike at one of the banking centers on the planet. And that's what I think we're seeing going on right now.
Okay, now one more point about these bankers, and I'll get off. Okay, I heard either from Doug, from Hagman report, or Golden Jackass report, one of the two, that that a banker with Deutsche Bank in Germany was approached because they're also involved in fixing the price of gold as well as not delivering physical gold. And this made some rich people irate from the Eastern Bloc European countries. And so he gets a knock on his door, and guess who the authorities were from, representing these Eastern Bloc European countries? Interpol.
Yeah.
Interpol, not surprising.
Interpol, and he was scared to death.
Thanks for calling, John. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Finish off today's show. And we're back with the closing minutes of today's show. Dave Hodges, my guest, thecommonsenseshow.com. thecommonsenseshow.com. And the other website that I gave out wrong last week is theirglobalcooling.com. Is theirglobalcooling.com. If this is absolutely true, Dave, and I don't know, but it seems to be, that there's a group of dedicated, patriotic folks out there that are taking now, they're taking action. I urge everyone to get your Bible out and read Joshua chapter 2. The harlot Rahab, God blessed her, saved her, because she protected the spies from Israel to come in and spy out the land. The Lord may use you in that way if you're open to it. Because what the bankers, the rich men of the earth, have planned for you, folks, is the slavery of your children, your grandchildren, their children, in perpetuity. That's what their plan is. They won't be successful in it, we know that. But the bloodshed that's going to take place in their sacrifices to their gods is going to be horrendous. If you don't stand now, if you don't turn to the Lord now, the window is closing. Dave, finish it off.
Well, I think you said it very well, and now is the time. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that we have the physical resources to fight off the New World Order. I think we need to mount a defense. I think we need to do it in the name of God. Because of the fact that God honors those who honor Him, there is a spiritual solution to these physical problems. And I don't think that we're going to be rescued from this mess. And I don't know that this is the final days. No one knows the final days. But we're not going to be delivered from these tribulations that we're going through right now unless we show spiritual deference to our Lord. And this is what I would encourage people to do, is to humble yourself before the Lord. Ask for supreme guidance. When I sit down to my keyboard and write my articles, I ask the Lord, thy will be done. And I'm sure I constantly fall short of the glory of God, but it's not for not wanting to be a servant. And this is why I agreed to come on your show today, as like-minded Christians trying to spread the truth as we see it. We are fighting against abject evil, and I identified earlier in the show that the final prize is our soul. And this is ultimately what we're all fighting for.
Amen. But fear not those that can kill the body, but not the soul. But fear the Lord that can kill the soul and body. And Isaiah 54:17. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. As you go to these meetings, condemn in a silent prayer, condemn their words. And it works, folks, if you truly believe it. If you ask the Lord to silence them, I've seen it happen. They stutter, they sweat, and, well, the meeting comes to an end.
Well, like Lisa Papa. Stacy spoke at one of these Fort Collins City Council meetings recently, and she had to leave the room because she was in tears from the blistering that Stacy gave her.
Yes. Dave, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure, Randy. Anytime.
God bless and hang in there. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And remember, the question is not, do you know the Lord Jesus Christ? The question is, does He know you?